Good. Well, welcome everybody for our webinar about customer feedback management. So today is a bit different to what most of you guys have been joining some of our webinars. We usually bring on some experts or some partners, but this time we really wanted to do like a deep dive into what you can do with Simplesat and surveys and customer feedback. So we brought you the cream of the cream, or crème de la crème, as we say in French, from Simplesat. Cory Brown, our CEO, Elliot Fox, our head of customer success, and Hannah Logan. A lot of you know Hannah and have been interacting with her through the support channel and some demo. And she's our product expert. And yeah, she's a feature of all of our webinar. We are very exciting to have all of you guys here today. Oh, I see my slide deck is not working. Okay, it is. So before we start, the webinar will be recorded, obviously, so don't worry, get the recording probably tomorrow already, and make sure to use, because we really want this to be very interactive. We want to answer all of your questions, so make sure to use the chat to put questions, and we'll answer it at the end. And since this will be divided into different topics, at the end of each topic, we're also gonna run through some Q&A. Some of you might not know what Simplesat is. Well, we are your friendly neighborhood customer feedback tool. And we make it easy to gather, segment, analyze, and publish customer satisfaction data, and we do that through fun customizable surveys that integrate seamlessly with all of the tools that you're using. And sorry, because I'm looking at all of my notes here and I'm like confused. I don't know what I'm doing here. So
doing great
about that. And we have 5 key topics that we're going to cover today. We're going to start with the fundamentals of customer feedback. Then we're going to move to gathering feedback across all of the channels and what does that mean, analyzing and interpreting customer feedback, turning those into actions, and then we're going to end up with some special extra Hannah tips about how to get more constructive customer feedback and how to boost response rate. But let's get started first with the fundamentals of customer feedback. And I'm going to ask questions to the panel, but again, feel free to add any questions you guys have in the chat, and we are going to make sure that we can answer them. The first question that I have for you guys: what are the key metrics or KPIs to monitor in customer feedback? Who wants to take that one? Key metrics.
All right, I'll start. I'm sure Hannah and Elliot will jump in here. But I guess when it comes to metrics, the 2 top metrics that I recommend every business to be collecting are a combination of CSAT and NPS. And that kind of gives you a whole picture of how customer satisfaction is going. Of course, there's a lot of other types of surveys and metrics you can be doing, but those 2 really help, because CSAT is your transactional CSAT transactional feedback that's going to be connected to your help desk, or it could be like an email signature, but really it's capturing feedback about an interaction. It could be a support request. It could even be like at the end of a project, but it's like, how do we do on this ticket, or how do we do on this project? And that's really important to have set up, because once that's up and running, it's integrated with your help desk. It's basically, set and forget. It's just attached to every solved ticket, or you're sending it out 24 hours later or whatever. But that gives you the peace of mind to know that every ticket that you solve in your help desk, your customer has a chance to rate it. So if there's ever a bad interaction, if there's ever a great interaction, they have the chance to vent or to praise your team. And the other one is NPS, which it's the question: how likely are you to recommend a company to a friend or colleague? And this is tracking more general sentiment and customer loyalty. And this is important because it's not directly connected to any type of interaction or project. Typically, we recommend our customers to send out NPS email every quarter, or twice a year, once a year, whatever the cadence works for you. But this goes to all customers, which is important as well, because there might be, especially decision makers, from your customers that aren't active in your help desk. So it's allowing you to survey people that aren't, active, working with agents, working with projects, but these are the people that you want to be recommending you. And if they're not recommending you, that you want to, tap on that and figure out what's going on. So the combination of those two things is really just like the base of being able to collect feedback and understand it with your company. Anything else you guys would add?
Yeah, I think you mentioned about NPS, how it's not being, connected to that service event, so you get kind of more honest or general feedback. And I think that's really key, because a common problem, at least in your history with CSAT surveys, Cory, has been what do you do with CSAT surveys when they go too positive? You have 100% positivity across, however many feedback you get that month. Maybe it's 100, maybe it's 500. But if it's all positive, how do you keep improving? And, I think we're going to address it, later on, but the answer is you need to get more negative feedback somehow, ask harder questions, maybe.
Definitely.
And so I think NPS, in part does that.
Okay. Anything else to add on this topic?
No? Yeah, I would also say that there are a lot of other, survey touch points you can do, and a lot of other ways that you could collect customer feedback. Especially if you have a website and you have other things that you want to survey on, maybe other events, other transactions, maybe product satisfaction, or maybe if somebody uses a feature, you want their opinion on how well did that experience go, or how was the user experience. And those surveys are important too. But it depends, what type of business you're running and what kind of delivery methods that you can have in play, and what channels your customers are on.
Okay. And how do you build a culture around customer feedback, a culture that really values customer feedback?
I guess I'll start again. I think one thing is really important. I think it really needs to be it really helps, or maybe it doesn't need to, but it really helps for it to be a top-down initiative, where if the the CEO or the leadership doesn't care about it, then it's really hard to get your support teams to care about it, or anyone else in the company. But conversely, if the entire company sees leadership and the CEO really caring about it, responding to customers, digging into issues, praising for good feedback, I think that sends a message throughout the entire company. So, I guess like many things, how to start a culture is it's a lot of it's top down. It's also, I guess this is just advice more for new companies, but it is easier when it's ingrained from the beginning. It's not like it's impossible to do it for a company that doesn't have a culture, that they've been around for a long time, but starting it as soon as possible, I think, helps as well.
Okay.
And just I would say, you gotta, sorry. I would say another thing is you just got to you have to make sure that you're using the feedback and you're getting it outside of its silo. You have to get it in front of other people in your company. You have to broadcast it, use it for employee recognition, use it for customer recognition. If you have happy customers, have your team follow up with them, thank them for their feedback. Have some social interaction that's built off of your feedback, or at least, gets it in front of the people that, received the feedback as a minimum rule.
I maybe have a few more to add here. It's also, you want to track this metrics, whatever, you could be tracking CSAT or NPS at the top level of the other top level metrics that you're tracking with your company. Like there's the book Traction, where it's the EOS system, where you have, you track your top line metrics, but this could be anything, whatever leadership meets and looks at revenue and looks at churn and looks at all of these other top level things. You want to be reviewing NPS and CSAT there as well, which helps ingrain it in the culture. It's not just like, okay, here's this thing, we signed up for Simplesat and we have these surveys coming in. We're actually looking at this data just like we're looking at revenue and churn and whatever the top metrics, and really just ingraining it in the culture, like Elliot said too, make it visible. In our Simplesat monthly town halls, sorry, I'm just looking at David's comment. EOS is the jam, yeah, baby. At our town halls, we talk about what's going on in the company, but we always talk about our NPS and our CSAT score, why it's going up, why it's going down, share meaningful comments, both good and bad. And also we have everything go to a Slack channel, to our Simplesat team. It's visible to the entire company, both negative and positive feedback. If it's positive, it's great to share the wins. And if it's negative, then it's a time for us all to dig into it. And kind of another thing about seeing leadership being involved. If the team sees that I'm involved and Elliot's involved, and we're trying to, honestly figure out what happened or what could we do to make sure it doesn't happen again, then that's visibility throughout the entire company. So I think that helps get it through the culture as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point about the Slack integration. I think this is one of my favorite things to see those coming in, good or bad. I think it's very important so that everybody know what's going on, and we can celebrate the wins. Okay, awesome. Before we move on to the next topic, if you guys have any questions in the attendance here about what we just discussed, let us know in the chat. If not, we're going to move on to the next topic.
Oh, I see. Claire asked how often we should be sending NPS surveys to customers.
Oh, yeah.
I think, this is an answer that every business kind of has to find for themselves based on, their customer base, how frequently do they like to be contacted, what industry you work in, what can you get away with, basically. Personally, I view quarterly as being a bit too frequent. Half a year is kind of, the perfect cadence, at least for us. And then annual is a very safe cadence where, nobody's going to get annoyed by you sending too many surveys if it's only once a year, but you might not get as frequent polling as you like. So I would recommend 6 months, that is to say.
Would you say that it also depends on the number of customers that you have? Elliot?
No, I don't think so. I think no matter what the number of customers, I think we would still do 6 months. But what does happen is your audience size increases so much is that you might not need to survey everybody or every contact within your customer base. Maybe just the key ones that you care about, or maybe like a cohort of that, a sample group. I would say you should definitely survey 100% of decision makers, people who are very impactful what their opinion of your business is. But if you have like lower level users who are just using the software, a cohort analysis should be fine as long as you capture around 30% of that group.
Yeah, and just pay attention to response rates as well. We used to do quarterly email NPS surveys, and gradually the response rates were going down over time. And I think just partly maybe just people getting sick. Like, dude, it's 3 months ago I answered this, so we switched to twice a year. But just like a few weeks ago, we switched. I think we're back at quarterly now, but for web embed surveys instead of email, and getting a lot of response rates from there, which is great. But so it's okay. You could you could tweak it. You could do 3 months, like everything that Elliot said. Just find what works for you.
Yeah, you can always adjust it, and it's a pretty low penalty for failure usually.
Yeah, and David in the chat mentioned that they do CSAT every service request and NPS twice a year.
Right.
So I think that's a great cadence.
I agree with that, especially. I've heard clients just in demos over the years bring up the idea of like surveying, but having kind of a cool down period for tickets. Personally, I think it depends on what your goal is. If it's purely for like quality assurance and you're reviewing how your technicians are doing, like answering tickets, for instance, or how that event's going, it could make sense to throttle it. But if your goal is to make sure that every request is going well and that your customer doesn't have a complaint that they're holding on to, then you should survey on every request, basically, because you can't guarantee which request is the bad one. And if you don't survey on the bad one, well, your customer might feel a little bit lost on how to get that information to you about their bad experience.
Excellent. Great. Okay. So let's move on to the next topic, where we're going to talk about what channels are most effective for collecting feedback.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So in terms of whatever channel, so I mean, similar to what Cory had said, was we were doing email NPS for a long time and noticed, the response rate kind of gradually declining just over the years. And then we switched to the web embed NPS, so a different channel, the in-app method for us on our website, and we found the response rate shot up. So I think it's, really about, you want a survey on the channel that your customers are actively engaged on, the one that they're using the most, and they'll be more likely to answer a survey if it appears. And also whatever's most tightly paired with that event that you're surveying on. So if the event's, a website event, you should have an in-app survey ideally pop up within that context to immediately gather feedback on whatever the event was related to. If it's a ticket event, ideally, again, within that same context that they're using to communicate on the ticket. If it's within chat, ideally a chat survey right before, you kind of lose the customer's attention span. We find chat a little bit difficult to do just because there is that when a chat's over, you hope the person is sticking around and, is still there at that point, but they may have already left, which in that case, you'd follow it up with an email. So the best approach is on the channel that your customer's already there on, so they have visibility into that survey. The second best, if that's not possible, is to send on all channels that they've engaged on, follow up through another channel, whatever you can do to get that response rate if it's really important to have a strong response rate.
Gotcha. Okay. And how do you make sure that the feedback that you collect through those different channels is actually actionable?
I'll take this one. So the key would be like asking relevant question to their experience. Like it's not enough to know if they're happy, neutral, or like have a bad experience about that support ticket. You want to get more context as much as possible. So you need to be strategic when it comes to adding follow-up question. So in order to do that, you also want to simplify it for your customers, especially, if they gave you like a neutral or bad, you don't want to route them to kind of like an open-ended question. You want to simplify it to them, create like a multi-select or multiple question. So you can just put choices such as, is it about the agent resolution time? Is it about the product and such? So those are just some of the sample questions that you can ask. Again, it's not enough to ask like just a single question. It's good to know their experience or how do they feel about that support ticket. But the more context that you can get from your customer, the better, because you can definitely use it when it comes to improving your support team and also the processes that you have in place.
Okay. And I think the next question I wanted to ask, I think we answered it, about the ideal frequency for gathering feedback.
I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think we already reviewed that with the previous question. Yeah.
Let us know in the chat if you have any other questions about that.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, anything else about gathering feedback that we can help?
If not, we're going to move on to the next topic, which is about how to analyze and interpret what you actually get in terms of customer feedback. So, Cory, maybe this one is for you. How do you separate signal from noise in customer feedback?
I get you do it with aggregating data, and of course, you have the more feedback you have, the better. But the more noise you have, the more data you have, the more you can turn it into insights. So through the Simplesat dashboards, or if you just want to export the data through API or integrations, you can take this data and turn it into, aggregate scores or trends. Trends is a really important thing to look at. People ask, what's a good NPS score? And it really varies by industry. Like I saw this chart a few years ago. It's like telecom providers are like 0 or negative. That's like good. But then SaaS companies are way higher. Service businesses are higher. So it depends on the industry. But what matters is that your baseline, and then you can track that. And you can see the trend if that's going up or down. And it's the same with NPS or CSAT or any metric. Also, just paying attention to common themes. Like if you're looking at comments, don't get too distracted by a one-off comment. Maybe it's just a really grumpy customer who's having a bad day. but we see it often in our survey feedback. It's most of the time it's about features, and it's just like, you know, whatever the NPS score is, and they go, but I really wish you had this feature. I really wish you had this feature. And we all start to see it, and we gather this feedback, we put it in product board, we use it to capture feature requests, but also we're just viewing this in Slack every day, and we're talking about it every day. So that really helps us, you know, differentiate the noise for the signal from the noise, where we just see these common themes coming up again and again. All right. Anything else to add on that, guys?
Yeah, actually, so I would say that the data within Simplesat that we dashboard for you is the feedback data. But usually it's more meaningful if combined with more contextual business data. So you want to know everything that led up to that feedback event, and what are the indicators that it could have gone wrong or it could have gone better. And if you're using it in a software company as opposed to like a service company, there are a lot of interesting things that you could do with survey data and tying those into operations. Like maybe it's, you know, you're using a survey data and then you're getting the responses from the surveys. It's going back into your customer data that you use for your app, and then you could make the app look a certain way or enable certain features based on their survey response, or maybe activate like a guided tour after somebody takes like an onboarding survey, for instance.
Okay, thank you, Elliot. I see a couple of questions in the chat, and I see that Cory already answered Bridget's questions about recommended source for the industry benchmarks for NPS. So yes, we do have an article about that. So feel free to check the link that Cory just posted on the chat. I think Mike is requesting to have a one-on-one with you, Elliot, after this call. I don't know if that's possible or not.
No, probably not directly after this call. It's yeah, almost midnight here, but we could do it tomorrow, I'd imagine.
Okay. I think we also had a previous question, I think from Fisnik. This was related to something we talked about before, about can we expand on simplifying follow-up questions? How do we actually do that? Like simplifying follow-up questions.
Oh, I think that was the thing that I mentioned earlier. So
Yes,
in Simplesat,
yeah.
just in case you haven't, you know, created a survey yet, we do have conditional logic questions where you can route your customer depending on the sentiment or the answer that they selected in the primary question. So you can select like multi-select, comment box, or like multiple choice type of question. And it doesn't have to be the same for all of the sentiment. Like for positive, you can, since they're happy, you can route them to like an open-ended question or a comment box. For neutral and negative though, that's where when I would recommend like be strategic, either use the multi-select or multiple choice question, make it easier for them. Give them the choices why they're not happy. So it could be the quality of the resolution provided, it could be the time, resolution time, or if it's, you know, it could also be about the product itself or like a missing feature. So that's something that you can do in Simplesat. You can set it up in your surveys. And yeah, it's going to be easier for customers.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'd add to that, just like finding the right cadence for sending NPS surveys. If you have open-ended questions, you could get more personalized and valuable feedback, but you could have lower response rates because that's requiring someone to take the time to think of something and type. And if you have a multi-select or multiple choice, you're going to probably get more feedback, but it's going to be more general. So that's a thing that you could play around with, where if you feel like you're not getting enough follow-up responses, you know, a lot of people are answering the survey but not answering the follow-up question, you could try multiple choice or multi-select just to see that you can get something, because it's so much easier to click something like the thing that you disliked the most or liked the most. But conversely, if you're just getting a ton of that feedback and you want something even more like, what feature are we missing, or what did we especially do well today, then you could try a comment box. So you could play around with those things.
I mean, it's like we talked about before, is how to make sure you get like actionable data, or that your CSAT score isn't 100% positive, right? You need to ask harder questions. So a comment box is very much a hard question because you're forcing the customer to put in some effort into their answer. and you're more likely to get something meaningful as a result, but you will also get a lower response rate on those kinds of questions.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Fisnik. If there is any follow-up questions to that, feel free to add it in the chat. One question left on this topic, it's about how to actually interpret feedback correctly and avoid misinterpretation. So is there any tips here that you guys want to share?
I would say you got to talk to your users. You know, if there's a confusing comment, which there often is from feedback that we get, which is why we have all of our feedback. Every feedback that we get, we take it and we send it over into our support platform that we use, Intercom. It creates a new conversation, and then we can immediately follow up with our customers. We can reference the feedback that they had left, and we can continue the conversation. So whether it's good feedback and we're just thanking them, or potentially, seeing that they're a happy customer, and we might, ask them to give us some additional feedback or to help us out on a public review marketplace or something, so we can, use that positivity for like co-marketing or something like that. Or if it's negative, we can engage them on the issue that they've identified. Maybe it's a feature request or a defect or a bug, or maybe it's an issue that needs a support call. Whatever it is, it's important that we track it or address that issue.
Okay.
And then
awesome.
we do that in a timely way too. So within an hour of them submitting the feedback, ideally.
Okay. We're going to move to the next topic. If there is any questions about how to analyze customer feedback, let us know in the chat. But we're going to move to turning feedback into action. We talked a little bit about that already, but I'd like to talk about how to prioritize which feedback to act on, especially if you have a lot of feedback coming in.
Yeah, when I first saw this question, the first thought was like the Eisenhower matrix, where you have the urgent, not urgent, important, not important. It's kind of oversimplified for this answer, but basically your urgent, important are the feedback that just came in and it's negative and someone's unhappy and something is not even resolved yet. And that is something you need to act on immediately. You solved this ticket, but it's not done yet. You said it's done. I'm unhappy. Like that is, if you want to know what to prioritize, that's the priority. Of course you don't want to be putting out fires all the time, but if there's a fire, that's your priority. Not urgent, important could be like, so we get this is probably our most common negative feedback that we get, is it's something about the product, usually a missing feature. So there's nothing that we could do about it today or this week, but it's important, and kind of just like finding the signal from the noise. It's if we see this important stuff come up a lot, like, hey guys, you're missing this feature, that's something that we need to make sure that it's in the backlog and prioritize that for the future. Urgent, not important could be something like, really great. I mean, I don't have a good example. Maybe like really positive feedback, but it's not like a fire that needs to be put out, but it is a great opportunity to reach out and thank them. But following the Eisenhower matrix, like you could delegate that, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you could just have someone on the support team do it. And then not urgent, not important. I would just say like a positive feedback with no additional comments attached to it. We usually, we don't ignore those, but we don't follow up on those. So I don't know. There's the Eisenhower matrix for you. Anything else to add there, guys?
Yeah, I think in part what you're getting at, is if it's something that is urgent, it needs to be immediately addressed, then, address it or find the person to address it. If it's not urgent, then, make sure you're cataloging everything and you're categorizing it, and you're leveraging that data, and you're keeping it long-term, where it's easily accessible for those down the line improvements that you're going to make, the not urgent improvements, like maybe it's a product development. So you have all of the feedback over the years that have come in that related to those specific features, and then you can pull them up when you're actually developing and working on addressing them.
Yeah, I think we're gonna mention a little bit how to align customer feedback with product development later. But what are best practices for communicating those changes to customers?
So communicating communicating what? Like what does this question mean?
Feature requests.
So like if there is any issue that you see in the feedback.
Okay, right. Yeah, so the one thing we do is, so we use intercom to communicate with our customers. And if there is anything, if there's like a bug reported or something that we need our devs to connect to help with, we have a GitHub integration with intercom that allows us to create a GitHub issue. And whether the intercom conversation is open or closed, once the GitHub issue is closed, it reopens the intercom conversation with a note about it. So that's a great just way to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, and we can attach actually multiple intercom conversations to the GitHub issue. So it reopens a bunch of them. So once a bug is fixed, then that's a great way to have our support team know and respond. But even if you don't have those integrations set up or something like that, or if it's something that doesn't require devs, I think it's important to keep the ticket or the conversation open. It's a great way to frustrate your users or customers is when you solve a ticket or a request that they don't believe is solved yet. So, don't worry about your time to close, KP metrics or whatever. What's important is that the customer knows that you're working on it, it's open. And if it's going to take more than a few days or something, you can gradually, repeatedly check in on that. I don't know, Hannah, Elliot, I'm sure you guys have more to say here about what you've been doing for communicating these changes.
Yeah. The other thing would be for feature requests. I think Cory already mentioned it earlier. So besides GitHub, we also use Product Board. That's the tool we use to collate and track all the feature requests that are being submitted. So in our support channel or help desk, we actually tag or track those feature requests that are being submitted. So whenever we do like release cycle, select the theme of features that the devs will work on, we actually, get all the data in Product Board. So we filter out the data, what is the frequently requested feature that we're missing. Then once we got the data, we reach out to those customers who submitted that request if we need more info, or once we already release that feature, we actually email those customers who requested that specific feature to try it out before we go on, live production if there's other suggestion or like final tweaks that they want to see in that specific feature. So.
Great. Any follow-up questions in the chat in regards to this? If not, we're going to move to the next topic, which is mostly the Hannah show, about some very cool actionable tips. But before we go there, if you guys have any questions, put it in the chat. Okay, Anna, I think this one is actually important. We have these questions quite often. And Cory, you mentioned that also, is that you don't want to always have positive feedback. You do want to have negative feedback, provided that it is constructive. So how to actually get more constructive feedback, negative constructive feedback?
The first thing would be, I think Elliot already mentioned it earlier, like ask tougher questions or like relevant question. Because the main purpose of the feedback is getting more context out of your customers, because that data is essential when it comes to improving not just about the product, but your whole team as well. So try to play around with open-ended question. Also, if you haven't, use a survey tool yet, it's better to set a baseline first. Use the commonly asked questions. Then once you have enough data, you can play around, see which one is more effective. So one of the things that we do display in our survey dashboard would be the question summary report, wherein you would see if a lot of your customers are skipping a particular question. So that's about, a perfect time for you to either change it to something else or tweak it a little bit to be more effective. Also, you can utilize the survey with, let's say, rating scales. So you can combine open-ended question with rating scales in your survey. And that way your customer would have, or this would allow your customer to provide their opinion and rate, a specific question depending on how they felt about the particular experience or how do they feel about the particular product or services. Anything to add?
One thing I would add, one of the reasons just that I wanted to start Simplesat is that I was running a marketing agency at the time, and we were using Zendesk. They still are using Zendesk, and Zendesk's native CSAT tool is just binary, good, bad. And like Elliot was saying, our CSAT score was consistently 99 or 100%, and that just drove me crazy because we were nowhere close to perfect. So if you increase the scale of CSAT, and in Simplesat, you can go from 2 to 5 scale. So if you're 5 scale and you start getting 4 and 5s, we both count those as positive in Simplesat, but you can see the ratings as well. And, I guarantee you, if you have a 5 scale survey, you're not going to get, and you have 100% CSAT rating, but you're not going to get 100% 5s. So at least that's something that both with your, tracking to agents, you can see which agent has the most 5-star reviews, or which customer is leaving the most, or, how are things trending from, you could look at your mean score instead of just your CSAT score, which is % positive. You could see how is that changing over time. So definitely adding more scales and gives more granularity. And even if people are happy, it allows them to say, I'm happy, but not 5 out of 5 happy. Kind of thing.
Yeah, you can really see that with the NPS survey too. It's how rare the 10s are.
Mm-hmm. I never give 10s when I see other surveys. I'm happy 9, but I'm hard to please. Although we got one survey from someone a few days ago, it was a 0 NPS because they say I just use the product and I just don't have anyone to recommend it to. So that's, I don't have any friends. I don't know what he was saying, but that's one of the downsides of NPS that people can misconstrue the question, get into it too much. But anyways,
sometimes take it a little too literally. I think maybe that would be like an outlier or something. You could probably delete that one.
Noise, not signal. Okay.
And so we talked about getting those negative feedback, but how do you actually boost response rates to make sure that you get answers?
I talked about this a lot in previous webinar. So when it comes to collecting feedback, timing is the key, especially if you have getting tons of support tickets. Instead of waiting after 24 or 48 hours, once the ticket get resolved to survey your customer, while it's okay, it's not the best way to do it. You want to make sure that you can collect feedback or you can send a survey to your customer as soon as they confirm that the issue is already resolved. So that's the best way to do it when it comes to CSAT surveys. NPS, we did mention it earlier. Try to play around with it to find what's the best frequency for you. May it be 3 months or 6 months. Like for us, we started with 3 months and we kind of noticed response rate, it kind of going down. So we switched it to 6 months and we've seen kind of a lot of improvement there. Besides timing, you also want to personalize the survey. So I talked to several, users or customers of ours. One of the things that they're afraid of would be over surveying customer. That's why they don't want to survey or send out the survey for every support ticket. Some would also say, some of our customers are submitting 3 to 4 tickets a day. And sometimes, 2 out of 4 is positive. One of those would be negative, but they, click the negative on the wrong survey. So how do you avoid that? Personalize the survey. if you can, include the name of the agent in your primary survey question. How did this agent do in this particular ticket? Include the ticket as well. And instead of like using, the generic, hi customer, use their name, personalize, address the survey, personalize the survey questions, make them remember that this survey is for this specific ticket. So that's how you can, get more responses. Personalization of the survey is also one of the key factors. The other thing would be, if you can incentivize feedback, you can provide tangible incentives to your customers whenever they complete survey. So that can be like a promotional discount, could be, an access to limited content, things like that, so that you can encourage them or persuade your customer to answer your survey. That's something that you can consider doing, especially when it comes to NPS survey. So I've seen some of our customers do that actually, and it's very effective when it comes to getting more responses and high response rate.
Yeah, and David just said that we include the survey with the ticket close itself. I think this is really that we do this. I recommend this. Zendesk's default is actually to use an automation, not a trigger, and to send the survey 24 hours later. And I don't think that should be the default recommended approach, because for one, you're sending an additional email, and two, it's 24 hours later. Maybe they, it's not that longer later, but they might have forgotten about it. Let's say if they were heated or really happy, that motion might have left. So yeah, just throw it in the existing email. So you're not over surveying. They were going to get the email anyways. So
yeah, and if there are multiple tickets, I can't imagine how messy that would be with the automations. Like, which ticket is it? What ticket was that?
Right. And Adhar had a comment here about German customers maybe leaving negative feedback, but this just kind of going back to signal from noise. In Simplesat, you can filter off of different attributes for feedback. And if you're tracking the customer's country, you actually could be tracking feedback from the worldwide, Germany, US, that you could actually see that, and to know if is there actually a trend, with the Germans or not. But maybe we should do that. We don't have any unhappy Germans. Anyways, what's next? Atari's happy, yeah.
Hannah, did you have any more tips in terms of boosting those response rates?
I think that's pretty much it.
What about cute, fun, and colorful rating icons that stand out?
Yeah, you can include it.
Serious, instead of just like, again, yeah, I don't want to hate on Zendesk too much, but their default is just text that says good, bad, and we're visual people. And if you see, I mean, maybe we're a little over the top at Simplesat with these dancing thumbs or something, but you're going to be it's going to catch your eye. You're going to be more likely to see it, and you're going to want to click on it. So I think that can help as well, whether you use static or animated smiley faces, but colors and animations and all that sort of thing, I think can help as well. Yeah,
good point. Yeah, if they're seeing the same design over and over again, they're not really going to be persuaded to answer the survey. I've seen some customers who actually are using custom icons. It depends on the season. So I've seen some are already using the Christmas season icon.
That's cool.
So they often change it, depending on the season, so that it looks fresh whenever they send out the survey to the customer. So yeah, you can.
And actually, another thing too is that what would be even worse than just ugly text, good, bad, is to send an email that says, please take 5 minutes to answer the survey, and there's a button that says answer survey. You're like, oh God, what? But if it's a one-click survey in Simplesat, you can just click the first rating. We capture that instantly. You don't even have to submit or get to the end. So at least you got something. And once your customer clicks the rating and then the web survey opens up, then you're more likely to say, okay, I'm just going to follow through and answer the rest of these questions. So try to avoid just sending a link that says, please rate us if you can. You know, there might be some times where you have to, like in Zendesk chat or Facebook chat where it doesn't work. But if you can do the one-click survey, then that'll help response rates as well.
Yeah, I see Steve's question here about images not downloading. That is our nemesis with Outlook. If the images are blocked by default, it's hard to make the images appear. They have to either click to download it, or they have to click on, you know, one of the boxes. So that could actually be a time where, you know, if you think that's a significant portion of your customer base, you might want to switch to the one-click click here to do a survey button, or make it, you know, a text format survey, or best of both worlds. You can do emojis with the labels. Oh yeah, emojis are text, so emojis don't get blocked because you're not sending a picture.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's our workaround for it there in the configuration, definitely.
Okay, great. Anything else to add? No? Okay, so why don't we move on? We have about 8 to 10 minutes left here, but it's okay if you finish earlier too. So don't hesitate to add more questions in the chat or in the Q&A. It can be about everything that we've been discussing tonight. If you have any questions about Simplesat, or any problems, even anything you'd like to discuss with us right now, don't hesitate. I mean, the CEO is on this call, so he can make things happen eventually, right, Cory?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. While I see a question here from Brian. Typical time a customer takes to stand up a pilot.
Not sure what that one means.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
First implementation. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, usually well within the 2-week free trial period. Of course, it varies depending on how complex the use case is. And you know how thorough they need to be with testing before putting it in a production environment. Of course, the easiest is, you know, you get your survey embed code, you copy it, and you paste it right into a Zendesk trigger. But not all organizations are going to want to do that to their live production environment and have that affecting all outgoing communications instantly. So easier for small companies that can kind of you know, shoot by the hip. But certainly 2 weeks should be enough time. If not, we're usually pretty good about, you know, extending trial if customers do need more than that first 2-week period. And we can assist with onboarding as well. So feel free to reach out, schedule a meeting, and we can help you out with getting set up.
And I would say too, like as Elliot says, it's, you know, the smaller you are, the more nimble and you can be. But it's not a lot of risk to adding a survey, especially to your closed tickets, because once you turn it on, the surveys are only going to be in the tickets that were solved while it was active. So you could turn it on and turn it off, and then however many, let's say you closed 50 tickets that day, there's only 50 surveys out there in the wild. So it's not like this. It's not like this thing where it's like you must get it perfect until you can turn it on. Just, I don't know, turn it on and see how it goes for a few days, and you can turn it off. And I really don't think that your customers are going to, you know, think what's going on, why I got a survey today but not a few days later or something like that.
I think also the CSAT, the transactional CSAT ticket-based survey that we're used to as service desks, that's a pretty straightforward implementation. So that one's kind of easier. If you have, you know, something more involved, or if it, you know, you're sending it through Salesforce, but only, you know, if there's a more complicated flow involved, it might take additional setup time.
Okay, I think that answered Brian's question. I'm going to launch a poll now. We like to know, you know, get some feedback. We're in the feedback business, so feedback on, you know, today's webinar, and also if you guys need anything from us.
You guys knew it was coming.
Yeah, it was coming, obviously. But also don't hesitate to add some questions. Oh, I see a feature request in the chat from David. Okay. I'll let you guys read it, Cory and Elliot. So David feature request is, how can we track the total number of unique survey openings, not unique end user opens, but survey itself, ensuring that each survey is counted only once upon its initial load, regardless of how many times it is subsequently accessed? It seems like a binary trigger would work, accessed or not accessed, to help give an approximation of total survey sent. Tracking the number of times the survey is open isn't as helpful for us. And we know there are some possible workarounds, but it would be a nice addition for our metrics.
Okay, I think I got this one.
Go for it.
So I mean, tracking the number of unique survey openings, I think there's a lot of complexity in that. I'm not sure that there is a way to track that right now, at least in our system. But I think what you're getting at is that you want to know the number of surveys that are sent when they're sent. And I think our new use case, our new delivery option, the event-based emails, is a really effective way of doing that, because essentially the way it works is you're making an API call to Simplesat, and you're saying, hey, I want you to deliver this email survey to this person right now. And with that request, you can include custom ticket information, you can include custom customer information, you can include the date that you're sending the survey on. It's very easy to tie other data to that event, and you can track it and know exactly how many surveys were sent. Also, I think we track it in the dashboard, since we're the ones sending that survey, instead of it sending out within a service desk context, if it's coming from something like Zendesk or Freshdesk or ConnectWise. So it'd be an API driven email survey that we would send, as opposed to a third-party platform sending the survey.
Okay, thank you, Elliot. I'm going to close the poll now in about 20 seconds. So if you guys haven't answered the question, feel free to do it now, and add a few more questions if you want. We still have 2 minutes to go. And for the people who answered something else, email me ASAP. Yes, Hannah is going to reach out to all of you after this webinar. Okay, closing the poll now. Okay. I think we are good to go, everybody. So thank you all for attending. I see a lot of people ask to be added to the next webinar, which we will be doing. Next one will be in December. It will be mostly for MSP. So if you're an MSP owner, join us next time. We will add you to the list. It will be about email marketing. And the next webinar after December will be in January. We are doing this monthly. So hope you enjoyed this one. It was a pleasure to have all of you here tonight. Cory, Hannah, Elliot, you did an awesome job tonight. So thank you for all of your great
Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for sticking around if you made it this long.
Thanks for hosting, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.